Thank you for joining the August meeting of the RTC Board of Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, staff is ready for you to begin.
Thank you. We'll call to order the meeting of the RTC Board of Commissioners. RTC staff will begin a roll call of board members, introduce staff on the line, and also touch on a few housekeeping items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maren Dubois, Management Analyst for the RTC, for the record. I will be calling your name in alphabetical order. Please confirm your attendance as I read your name. Mayor Pro Tem Stavros Anthony.
Here.
Councilman Isaac Barone.
Here.
Chair Larry Brown.
Present.
Councilman George Galt.
Here.
Commissioner Jim Gibson.
Present.
Mayor Carolyn Goodman.
Here.
Vice Chair Deborah March.
Present.
Mayor Kiernan McManus.
Present.
And Director Christina Swallow.
Here.
Thank you. Also, please note that we have several RTC staff on the line for today's meeting. This includes Ms. MJ Maynard, CEO, Mr. David Swallow, Deputy CEO, Mr. Francis Julian, Deputy CEO, Mr. Mark Trosdahl, CFO, Ms. Angela Castro, Chief Strategy, Policy, and Marketing Officer, Mr. Greg Gilbert, RTC Outside Legal Counsel, Mr. J.P. Penuelas, Senior Director of Engineering, and Ms. Eileen Pastor, Government Affairs Supervisor, who will be reading public comment. Additionally, we have Mr. Shondell Newsom, founder of Some New Marketing, who will be providing a presentation during the meeting. As the chairman mentioned, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. Please state your name for the record before speaking. Be sure to mute your line if you are not speaking, but please note that staff will monitor lines and mute any callers with background noise. Voting will be done verbally as a group, calling for ayes and nays. If there are no nays or abstentions, then the motion will carry. If there are nays, then a roll call vote will be required. In the event of a roll call vote, please wait for your name to be read to provide your vote. The chair will call for any comments or questions after an item has been presented. Thank you. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Maynard.
Thank you, Chairman Brown and members of the board. MJ Maynard, RTC CEO, for the record. The first item on the agenda is to conduct your first citizen participation period. To allow for public participation, the RTC is accepting public comments via email at publiccomments@rtcsnv.com. Comments can be submitted to be read aloud or to be added directly to the written record. Ms. Eileen Pastor will read the public comments received by the RTC. Mr. Chairman?
Yes. First item is citizens participation. Do we have any comments?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Chairman Brown. Again, this is Eileen Pastor, RTC Government Affairs Supervisor, for the record. You have one public comment for a posted agenda item for agenda item number 30. This comment is from Carl Gunther. 30A, this El Tren del Sol Spanish can be the rebirth of the Otis Harris's Future City, authorized some 10 years ago, as the mobility now of stadium to stadium and Amazon distribution, a centrally located connection, accelerating the liberation and reuse of the 15+ acres at the Moulin Rouge, reconstructed for housing and entertainment like a music venue. It can be used to create a location for both the military and skilled disadvantaged. The location of these families central to the Las Vegas population, reaching in 10 miles, and access to 3 airports, 2 major stadiums, with micromobility, like an enhanced electrified bicycle, skateboard, taking about an hour's drive. Raider Stadium has over 70,000 seats, and the racetrack 100,000. The modified freight feature will be a world first when implemented. I left messages earlier, but this document needs to be registered in the RTC for discussion if at all possible. And they indicated they can be reached in Florida. And that concludes public comments related to a posted agenda item.
Thank you, Eileen. Ms. Maynard, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is to approve the agenda. Staff would like to request that item number 40 and item number 49 be pulled from the agenda. Otherwise, the agenda is in order and ready for approval.
Mr. Chairman, this is Vice Chair March. Motion to approve the agenda with changes.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is to receive the CEO report. First, we have a paratransit operator recognition from MV Transportation, who is recognizing Mr. Ali Al-Nudawi, and Francis caught up Mr. Al-Nudawi.
He is an awesome driver. He's maintained 97% on-time performance, has worked for MV since 2016, and Ali actually never has a coachable moment to drive him, meaning he's got a perfect driving record. So let's come on and let's go and celebrate with Ali. Hi, Transit Juice from the RTC. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I just wanted to congratulate you and tell you you won the Crystal Plus Award from the RTC. Here you go. That's for your your peers and your colleagues are telling you that you're doing. So congratulations. Thank you so much on behalf of the RTC.
Thank you for Gloria, Hector, Jennifer Allen, and Sherry, and all the team in Carter Lane Safety. Thank you very much, all guys.
Congratulations, Mr. Al-Nudawi. He really is exceptional. Now we'd like to recognize a mechanic, also from our contractor MV, Mr. Frank Pesic. Francis surprised Mr. Pesic while he was wrapping up one of his recent shifts to present the unexpected award.
Frank Pesek actually started as a bus operator. He served our community for 3 years being a bus operator, then started going to Nevada State College to get his mechanic degree. Frank also now wants to keep going to school to eventually become management for the MV team. So what a great story. Let's go and see him. Yes. Hi, Frank. Hey, how you doing? Just wanted to congratulate you, give you the Crystal Bus. Unfortunately, we can't bring you to the board for the show, but you'll come as soon as we reopen. Just wanted to congratulate you. Your story is so amazing.
I just come to work, do what I needed to do, have fun doing it, and then see my supervisors and higher ups just kind of looking at me once in a while and noticing that I'm doing something great, trying to do the best that I can. It's awesome. It's a great feeling.
Congratulations, Mr. Pesic. He is amazing. I love that he's setting all those goals and going after them. So on Sunday, July 26th, we joined others across the nation in celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act, or ADA. This important civil rights law has leveled the playing field in ensuring equal access to transportation and other important facets of life for persons with disabilities. We're proud of the role we've played and continue to play in providing equitable service to our customers. So to commemorate the occasion, here's a video highlighting a handful of individuals and partners who have advocated for equal opportunity and access and really, in effect, contributed to building our community.
The Americans with Disabilities Act required that any public transportation system also provide paratransit. So we began immediately working on a paratransit service, and I was able to start that service up. We're very proud to have been a part of that at the foundation.
I've been associated with the RTC of Southern Nevada since 1995 in various capacities and commissions and committees that I've served on during that period of time. I've seen the evolution of the excellence that is exhibited by the RTC from 1995 to the present time. It is at a certain level of exemplary performance that very few people realize exists.
Jean has been a paratransit user since 1994, though I came in as part of the implementation part. However, for people that were disabled before that, I think it made a tremendous difference in what went on with their lives. In many instances, paratransit just really saved my life.
Public transportation is the foundation. It's the cornerstone of what the disability rights movement really became upon. If you cannot access public transportation, how can you access life?
Paratransit takes me up in the morning and takes me to work, and it picks me up in the afternoon and takes me home, which I really appreciate. I do have a few favorite drivers, yes. Thank you for taking me to work and back home.
Access to public transportation for people with disabilities is a lot more crucial than I could have ever imagined. Once I started working in the service, I think I took for granted being able to leave and go whenever I want. And what it means to me is that I get to contribute to the community on a level and a platform with an organization that I really never imagined being a part of. It's a service that's much greater than myself.
My experience working at the RTC has been great. Since I've started with RTC, doors have been loosened to make it easier for me to open them. Applicable space has been created so that my wheelchair can fit in conference room in any other room.
I am a military service disabled veteran. To be able to have full access to public transportation, including the RTC, is very, very important to me. The RTC has helped me to be able to access this community that is Southern Nevada much more easily and affordably.
So the services that are offered here at the Mobility Training Center are three-tiered. So the first service that we provide here is ADA paratransit service. The second thing that we offer here at the Mobility Training Center is RTC mobility training. So that's teaching a person with a disability or a senior citizen how to use the fixed route transit system or regular city bus. The third thing that we offer here is the only blindness skills training center in the state of Nevada, and that's run by a partner of the RTC's called Blind Connect.
You know, Blind Connect Angela's House has always had a mission to help restore independence for people who have been affected by vision loss. When we got the opportunity to partner with RTC to have our facility, Angela's House, actually built within the Mobility Training Center, that was an amazing development for our community, for our organization. And, you know, it's really created a place where people who just have lost their eyesight, that they can come and feel safe to learn this new way of life, to learn and find out that there's hope after vision loss.
As a classroom teacher, I previously taught students with very severe disabilities who were often, for a choice of not better words, left in the classroom. By working with the Regional Transportation Commission, we were able to get city bus passes which allowed me to take my students on community-based instruction where I could teach them appropriate behaviors in public, such as restaurants, grocery stores, and other places in the community. They also provide a training at the site where they have a bus inside of their mobile transportation area that they can show them exactly how to use their passes, where do you guys sit when you get up for someone who's in a wheelchair. It has opened up a whole new world to many of our students who have not been able to access some of those areas.
Transportation is a key need for our folks. And so having the ability to move around, that independence, is really a quality of life issue for anybody with a disability. So we're very grateful to everybody at the RTC for all they've done to help.
Well, I'll tell you, that highlights some of the best. This is why we love doing what we do. So anyway, now I'd like to hand it over to Deputy CEO Francis Julian to provide a snapshot of the state of the system.
Thank you, MJ. Francis Julian for the record, Deputy CEO. Since the pandemic hit, we have tracked traffic counts and traffic data, including on-time performance, ridership, vehicle capacity, and revenue. This is critical data to help us determine when it's appropriate to move forward to reduce Sunday transit service schedule, to bring it to a Saturday, and ultimately when we'll bring it back to a weekday schedule as we were pre-pandemic. The data on the chart is showing the comparison of the passenger ridership before the pandemic versus the most recent passenger ridership information. As you can see, before the pandemic, the average weekday ridership in February was about 168,000, while the average Saturday ridership was around 130,000, and the average Sunday ridership, which you see in the green line, was around 110,000. You can see that since the governor instituted his stay-at-home order in mid-March, the average weekly weekday ridership has yet to meet even the average of a Sunday ridership in February. Despite that, we have seen a steady increase in ridership and opted to increase service from a Sunday to a Saturday schedule. That increase to a Saturday schedule was mainly done because of traffic patterns that we were observing and passenger counts inside the vehicle. Next slide, please. On-time performance, that basically is the level of success of the service remaining on the planned schedule, to remain on the planned schedule. Many factors can affect on-time performance, included unexpected traffic congestions, the weather, detours, and obviously now the pandemic. The charts below is showing a weekly breakdown to show the on-time performance of vehicle before the pandemic compared to the most recent data. So before the pandemic, we actually were averaging 85% of the time the bus was within 5 minutes of being on time. When the pandemic hit, those numbers actually increased because we lost ridership, traffic patterns became lighter. As the situation evolved, we see the on-time performance started dipping to almost February level, and that's when we instituted the Saturday schedules. Next slide, please. So we've experienced a significant drop in overall transit productivity. Transit productivity is basically the measure for the transit vehicle passenger load. This graphic tracks the boardings of vehicles of all the vehicles in service per each hour of revenue service. As you can see, we had roughly 38 non-strips boarding per revenue in February, which dropped to 28 in March, and then 22 in April. Then in May, since May, we're seeing a slight increase to about 24.5 non-strips boarding per revenue hour. Next slide, please. Because of the decrease in ridership and the COVID-19 effect on our economy, our two main sources of funding, the fare revenue, the fare box revenue, and the sales tax revenue decreased really sharply in May and April. Fare revenue was nearly at zero in April and May when we had the rear door boarding for the safety of our drivers and passengers. Sales tax began to climb again in May, but we were still waiting for the June figures to see where this number will land. Next slide, please. So to help our riders feel more comfortable as they begin and continue to use transit, we issued a 14-point safety plan to let them know about the many safety precautions we're taking since the start of the pandemic. So in green, we can see what we're asking our riders to do. So basically putting a face covering on and exercising social distancing. In blue, on the graph, it's what we're doing for the rider. So the nightly cleaning and the disinfection of the vehicle, putting bigger vehicles on the road to make sure there's more room, utilizing more routes on certain, more buses on certain routes, having signs of social distancing within the vehicle, really promoting our contactless payment through our app. We've modified our driver enclosures to add security layers to both the drivers and the passengers, and really promoting a healthy workforce through enforcing the PPE. In purple, we're looking, these are measures that we're looking to implement in the future. So ion air filters, this is basically electrostatic devices that will go in the HVAC system and will clean the air three times a minute and kill germs and viruses. We will install live passenger counts, so that will allow passengers to see how full the bus is and allow them to make a decision. Also, it will allow us to make more real-time decision of where and when we need to put extra service to make sure that we're having social distancing in the bus. The live sanitation information. So pretty soon when passengers will get on a bus, they'll see on a display the last time the bus was sanitized, and they'll be able to access this information through our website or our app. And finally, microbacterial shields. These are shields that are applied throughout the bus. It's a layer that actually protects against germs and viruses for up to a year. Next slide, please. Now let's talk about what happened with Paratransit. The average weekly ridership in February of this year was about 27,000, actually almost 28,000. We can see the really big drop that we had in mid-March. While the ridership is increasing really slowly over the past week, we're still really far away from the pre-pandemic numbers. Next slide, please. The on-time performance for Paratransit. Before the pandemic, the on-time performance for the vehicle was about 94%. Because of the large drop in ridership and the fact that the traffic was really light in March, we see the on-time performance almost rising to 100%. As passengers started to get back in the system and traffic patterns started to increase, we saw the numbers go down to February levels, and some adjustments were made where the on-time performance is actually climbing back to where we want it to be at around 95%. RTC, our mobile ticketing and trip planning app, has been downloaded more than 360,000 times. Customers have purchased almost 1.8 million passes since the launch of the app in September 2016. In the next briefing, we'll tell you the usage of our app during the pandemic, but we're seeing a significant increase in that usage. What's important to note, 91% of our passes are sold to general market, and 9% were sold on the strip routes. And this concludes my report. I'm open to answer any questions.
Thank you, Francis. Comments or questions from the board? All right, moving on.
All right, the next item is to receive the NDOT's Director's Report. Director Christina Swallow is on the line to give you an update for NDOT.
Good morning. Looks like you already have my presentation up. Awesome. So next slide. I need to now get my notes because I wasn't ready for you guys to be so on it for me. Thank you. All right, so as normal, I'm starting with safety. And we continue to see a decrease in fatalities compared to last year. This year is down 3% from last year to 153. And while every life saved is awesome, it is a concern that the numbers are only down by 3%, given how dramatically our travel numbers are actually down. So we would have liked to see a much more significant decrease in fatality numbers across the state. In Clark County, however, the improvements in fatalities has been significant and more significant than statewide. From January through July, Clark County experienced a decrease of 19% in fatalities overall compared to last year and has seen improvements across all of the categories that we typically report on. Pedestrian fatalities are down 3%. Motorcycle fatalities are down by 19%, and the Valley has had 0 bicyclist fatalities this year. So there is good news in Clark County and across the state. In Clark County, the news is a little bit better. It's also important to remember that we always need, and this is why I focus on it, we all need to be considering our own impact on the network when whether we're on our bikes, walking, driving, or using transit. How do we interact with the others to ensure that the system is safe? And as I mentioned earlier this year, we are going to also continue to focus on a crash, an individual crash each month. And so I'd like to share a story about a crash. On Sunday, July 12th, a man driving under the influence in Las Vegas struck another man in a motorized wheelchair who was crossing Decatur north of Flamingo. The victim was taken to the hospital and ultimately succumbed to his injuries. The driver was taken into custody for DUI, resulting in death. Again, just a reminder, every one of us has a role to play in the safety of the network, and just to remind ourselves, our friends, our colleagues, and our family to think about the choices they make as they enter our transportation system. Next slide, please. Last month, I reported to you the very good news that we had received a $50 million infra grant for delivery of the Tropicana Interchange project. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that project. So that project will be reconstructing the interchange itself. We'll be lifting the bridge over I-15 to provide additional clearance. If you drive through the area, you'll see that we've been hit a few times, so we're going to lift it to provide additional clearance. We're also going to change the way we access on and off on Tropicana on both sides, and you can see some of those circulation patterns changing. This will help improve the throughput on Tropicana over I-15. So overall, the entire interchange will be improved, not just the movement through on I-15, but also over I-15 and accessing the resort corridor and the properties to the west on Tropicana. We're also adding a critical new access point to the strip at Harmon. And we're estimating the cost of the project will be somewhere between $180 million and $230 million. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up today is because in September, we will be starting with our design build procurement process and releasing the RFQ. We anticipate the RFP will then, once we've selected the qualified teams, we'll be releasing the RFP early next year with a design builder selection late summer of next year. So we're excited to finally be delivering this project and hopefully seeing the benefits from the project in 2024. Next slide, please. And then I did want to talk about the future I-11 with you. As you all know, this corridor is envisioned as a major north-south multimodal corridor, providing transportation, mobility, and goods movement from the border in Mexico all the way through Nevada. So it's a critical piece of infrastructure that we need to continue to work on and develop. And while we're excited that the first phases have been completed and are already showing great mobility benefits, we need to keep the progress moving. Our Tier 1 environmental impact statement is the next step to get I-11 through the Las Vegas metropolitan area. The goal in the metro area is to identify a preferred I-11 corridor as we go across the valley. So we're basically looking at 3 options. The first option is a 215 west option, so pretty much an existing corridor, but we may need to make improvements to facilitate the interstate movement if we chose that corridor. The second option is the 95 option. Again, an existing corridor, but we would have to consider what additional improvements may be required to upgrade it to an interstate level. And then the third option would be to possibly pioneer an eastern option. That's the shaded area on the exhibit. I should note that while it really shows a very broad shaded area on the exhibit, the team has already narrowed and identified several potential corridors within the shading that may be further developed via the EIS process. The I-11 Tier 1 EIS public meeting, online public meeting, launched late July, July 31st, and is running through August 31st. All comments are being managed through our consultant, and the main project website is i11nv.com. That went live May 1st, and it will remain up through the project. It's also the site where we have our online public meeting. We're receiving comments through the online meeting program system, through the project hotline, written comments via mail, Facebook engagement posts, the project website, and it will be hosting a telephone town hall to engage those who don't have online access. Additionally, we received comments at our transportation board meeting earlier this week, and those will also be included. We want to make sure that we hear from our community on how this critical corridor should be developed to best serve our community now and moving well into the future. And next slide. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Swallow. Other comments or questions from the board?
Chairman Brown, this is Mayor March. I have a few comments.
Please.
Have the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Brown, and thank you, Director Swallow, for your presentation. As RTC Vice Chair and Mayor of the City of Henderson, somebody's got feedback on their system. If they could turn it off. I think Christina, you're. Thank you. As RTC Vice Chair and Mayor of the City of Henderson, I believe it's imperative that we again address the significant concerns that Henderson has documented regarding the Nevada Department of Transportation's proposal to reevaluate a decades-long commitment to 2 interchanges on I-15 South between Sloan and St. Rose Parkway. This commission will recall that in March, I initially raised our strong objection to NDOT's unilateral rush decision to unwind over 10 years of transportation planning by initiating an environmental reevaluation of the previously approved 2 interchange configuration into a single combined interchange on I-15 South. I'd like to thank the members of this board for their support and insistence that NDOT take a pause on its quest for a single interchange and sit with the City of Henderson and the RTC to understand the implications of their narrowly focused action. City staff, NDOT staff, and RTC staff have spent the last several months updating NDOT's information, including traffic models, to evaluate NDOT's proposal. Through a series of meetings that concluded on July 13th, upon a thorough review of the updated traffic model, a model that historically underpredicts, the parties agreed that a single interchange configuration would operate at or near capacity. It's concerning enough to consider that NDOT would develop an infrastructure program that has little or no excess capacity before a shovel is put into the ground. But upon further review, the city staff has determined that it does not adequately address the physical and operational characteristics of truck traffic that will result from projects such as the 2.5 million square foot Haas Automation manufacturing project. Based on these added traffic considerations, it was agreed that a single interchange and surrounding street network did not have the capacity to support the planned traffic, and it was agreed by all at the meeting that the 2 interchange program was necessary to disperse and accommodate traffic. We learned this week through the city's coordination effort related to Express West Intercity Rail Project that NDOT is again walking back the 2 interchange commitment. As members of this commission will understand, and as representatives of local government, a plan such as the 6,000-acre West Henderson land use plan contains many interrelated elements, including roadways, utilities, schools, parks, police and fire facilities, commercial and residential uses, and significant public and private investment of time and dollars to bring them to fruition. NDOT has taken a single piece of the plan and chosen to rip it off the fabric of the overall plan without an inkling of understanding of the implications of such a narrowly focused, siloed action. Their actions also could jeopardize job creation, as all of the members of this board work hard to advance infrastructure projects that will help to rebuild our economy. This single action could jeopardize the development of Haas Automation, this decade's single largest economic diversification project, creating 2,500 high-paying jobs and setting the stage for future advanced manufacturing jobs in our community. With this single decision, does NDOT want to be responsible for putting our economic diversification efforts back decades? We need to know what that NDOT will work as a partner and recognize that they are a piece of the overall Southern Nevada infrastructure community and cannot act unilaterally. We need to know that NDOT will adhere to their commitments and understand that the millions of dollars and years of investment that are reliant on those commitments as well. I'd like to hear from the director as to how she plans to move forward on the previously established 2 changes that so many in our Southern Nevada community are currently relying on.
Thank you, Mayor March, for your comments. I had an extensive conversation with Mr. Herr last evening where I assured him that we have not made any decisions regarding the infrastructure on South I-15. In fact, we did incorporate the land use model that City of Henderson provided to us, and we have slowed the progress of the EIS reassessment so that we can have conversations with the City of Henderson. I assured him that we have, again, made no decisions, and what we're looking at doing is ensuring that we can maintain the operations on the main line, as the main line is our key gateway to the entire valley. Again, address safety. Whenever we have leaves, we have a safety degradation, so we want to make sure we're addressing safety issues, but also, or should I say, and also, address City of Henderson's concerns regarding access and your existing plan. So we are looking at the alternatives and the options to ensure that we develop a system that will work for all involved. At this point, we are evaluating alternatives for the corridor that again, addressing all of those options. If for some reason we have an alternative that is not very specifically 2 distinctly separate interchanges, we will have to go through a full public engagement process, as was brought up by Mr. Herr at the March meeting. We will not enter that process before we have a conversation with the City of Henderson, so that we all know what's going on and we're not doing it in a black hole. We want to make sure that we are addressing the needs of the corridor for all of the stakeholders involved. Again, no decisions have been made. I'm working on getting a schedule from our team, and we'll be sharing that with Mr. Herr shortly in the next early part of next week. And again, we have heard you loud and clear, and we are working to make sure that we address your concerns, as well as continuing to provide an I-15 corridor as the gateway to our community that works for all and all that travel that direction.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Ms. Maynard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next on the agenda is to approve the consent agenda. This consists of items 5 through 49 with the removal of item 40 and can be taken in one motion.
I move approval of the consent agenda. This is Jim Gibson.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Items 45, 46, and 47 will be heard together. These items are to notify the board of amendments made to our fixed route and paratransit contracts to address the COVID-19 pandemic and other emergencies using the emergency contracts provision in Nevada Revised Statute 332.112. Due to the increase in COVID-19 cases in Nevada, the RTC faces a need to continue to disinfect buses every night to provide a safe ride to our customers. The current contracts with our service contractors MV Transportation and Kills Transit provide for only regular daily cleaning. These contract amendments allow for a nightly disinfecting of each bus before it goes into service. They also allow for additional disinfectant procedures when an RTC employee or contracted employee tests positive for COVID-19, as well as other services or maintenance needed to clean or disinfect vehicles in office space. This extra service to disinfect about 800 fixed route and paratransit buses is approximately $28,000 per month, and the cost for emergency cleaning is about $6,000 per month, for a total of $34,000 per month across all 3 contracts. This concludes my prepared remarks, and I will answer any questions the board may have.
Comments or questions from the board? Hearing none?
If there are none, I move approval of the item.
You heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, that motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. David Swallow, Deputy CEO for the RTC, will introduce the next item.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The next item 48 is for the RTC to approve the RISE Resources Involvement Support Education Small and Diverse Inclusion Program and adopt a program participation goal. Over the last several years, the RTC, in partnership with each of your jurisdictions, has worked to put local small businesses to work through projects funded by Fuel Revenue Indexing, or FRI. Due to the success of these efforts, our team has developed and enhanced and small and diverse business inclusion program that goes beyond FRI funding to include all RTC funded projects. Mr. Shondell Newsom, founder and visionary of Some New Marketing, is here today to present the program for your approval.
Thank you, David. Good morning, Chairman Brown and Board of Commissioners. I'm Shondell Newsom, founder and visionary of Some New Marketing. Thank you for having me here today to share a brief update on the RTC's local small and diverse business inclusion efforts. Some New has been working with the RTC on its local small business efforts since Fuel Revenue Indexing, or FRI, was approved by the Board of County Commissioners in 2013. To begin, I'll share with you a quick overview of the program. When FRI was first approved, Some New worked with RTC to develop one local small business list from a number of broken lists as a result of the recession. We allowed local small businesses to self-certify 4 things. The key is self-certify: that they hold a business license from any jurisdiction in Clark County for more than 5 years, that they have a physical address, no P.O. boxes in Clark County, that they have gross revenues that average less than $22.4 million per year over a 3-year period, or that they are DBE certified. From that list, and in coordination with the RTC purchasing and streets and highways teams, we reported on basic contracts and dollars attributed to those businesses. The majority of the tracking was done manually, including following up with contractors to get the details of their self-certification status and making phone calls to businesses to gather race and gender information. While race and gender information was not required to certify as a local small business, this data was often requested by elected officials and organizations. So over the years, we have faced a few big challenges to maintain accurate small business data. First, businesses were able to self-certify as a local small business with no documentation. Second, our numbers are far from real time and often come long after a project has begun. Third, race and/or gender was not required in reporting. And fourth, the manual tracking through calls to gather sensitive, non-required information is very time and labor intensive, and often the business owners did not want to disclose that information. Fortunately or unfortunately, data tracking has been an issue across the country. So we have been learning from our peers, including San Diego, Denver, LA, and locally with NDOT. All of these agencies are using highly complex software, B2G Now, to efficiently and effectively enter, track, and report participation in DBE and LSB programs. As a result of our experience and research, Over the last year, our vision has been to create a program that grows our local small business program to include both local and local diverse business outreach that establishes three things. One, participation goals for increased accountability and transparency for both small and diverse businesses. Two, reliable data. And three, include all fuel tax funded infrastructure projects in addition to FRI. In order to do that, we are proposing a program titled RISE, which stands for Resources, Involvement, Support, and Education. RISE will be based on a three-pronged approach where we will, number one, update our small business inclusion policy. Number two, update bid docs on the front end. And number three, develop an automated certification process for more reliable data tracking. First, we are recommending an updated inclusion policy that includes a combined LSB and LDB participation goal of 8% for construction firms and 2% for professional service companies based on the contract amount. That policy would include all local RTC funded projects, including fuel revenue indexing. We feel that this is both an easily achievable goal, as conservative calculations during the original FRI program, we achieved nearly 9% in construction and 4% in professional services. We now feel that including all RTC funded projects is simply the right thing to do and will help us to achieve the goal. Second, we are proposing required bid documents to be completed by the successful bidder on any RTC funded projects. These forms will include a LSB, LDB participation survey that will collect information on how and which LSB, LDB businesses were contacted, the percentage of the overall bid, and why a LSB, LDB contractor bid was not accepted. A LSB, LDB business detail that would provide the specifics of the amount and the percentages of the overall contract for each LSB, LDB subs to be used on the project. These requirements will be required for the successful contractor to provide these forms at the pre-construction meeting, and this information will not be used as a basis to evaluate be used as a basis to evaluate the responsible bidder. To track and report on the progress of our goal, we are planning to implement B2G Now software to help us track and maintain data. As this is the program currently used by contractors on all NDOT projects, this will be a simple, seamless process for construction companies. We propose simply copying the same language that NDOT currently uses for their systems in the bidding process. And finally, for the business certification piece, businesses would be able to qualify for a local small business, local diverse business, or both using existing federal, state, and local certifications to qualify them for the program. This chart shows a breakdown of those certifications already available that we would use to help simplify the certification on RTC funded projects. This program will require four things. First, all companies must be local with a Nevada business license for a minimum of 5 years, carried over from the FRI and the LSB program. Second, while the small business certification would be gender and race neutral, it would include annual revenue caps. And third, while diverse business certification would be gender and race specific, it would not include annual revenue caps. All businesses must recertify every 3 years. If businesses don't already qualify with one of the above established programs, they will be required to submit additional documentation of race, gender, and/or financial status. So to compare what we currently do with what we are proposing, you can see that we would arrange from self-certification to a verified certification program. We would expand from the local small business only to include local, small, and local diverse businesses, and we would require a 3-year recertification. And we want to ensure that we are all using existing resources, programs, and certification. So our goal is to build on and maximize what is already out there through trade organizations, jurisdictions, and partnerships. And we have shared the program for feedback with each of our local jurisdiction purchasing and public works departments, the Nevada Contractors Association, Las Vegas Paving, MGM, and several small businesses and several small business organizations, including the Latin and Urban Chambers of Commerce, NAMAC, Live Electric, KME Architects, and G3 Electrical. In order to implement this program, we're requesting your approval today, as well as your approval of an updated small and diverse business inclusion resolution. If approved, we will present the program to the NAMAC membership next week and then roll out our program publicly during National Infrastructure Week in September. That concludes my prepared remarks, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, this is Jim Gibson. I have a question. I'm wondering, while I think that there's an enormous amount of work and the presentation is very helpful, and obviously the goals are the kinds of things that have been a part of what we've intended to be doing for a long while. I wonder what the cost of moving from what we've been doing, which sounds like almost nothing, to what we would start doing under this program is, and have you estimated what that might be?
So David Swallow, I'm going to ask you to respond to that if you can.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? I just caught the tail end of it.
Well, my question is cost. I mean, what do we imagine the cost of beginning to do? I follow the aspirations and the outline that we've just had presented to us as a new program.
Well, really, there's a software cost for the platform that we're using. I want to say that's just around $55,000 per year. Other than that, we have staff that are already dedicated to. We already have dedicated staff in place to help administer this program. So I don't know that there's any more additional cost in that regard. In terms of would it affect project costs? No, I don't think so. I think it's more of making sure that the work is parsed out to enable everybody to participate more than anything.
I think that I agree with the objective. Just wondering if when you got feedback from contractors and business folks, whether you received anything in terms of what additional costs there may be on that side of it, so that project costs would be impacted.
Not as of yet. Yeah, no, we haven't heard any feedback from the contractors as far as additional costs. I mean, we certainly, there is extra effort involved for larger contractors to help support small businesses as they're getting established, and adjusting work scope so that bonding capacity is right-sized for those contracts. So there is some effort there, but I haven't heard any direct feedback in terms of additional cost of projects.
And if I might add, this one is that, like we said in the presentation, we haven't really changed their process. So they're already doing that on all of the public works projects right now. So the process does not change as far as what they're originally doing.
And the goals, the percentages seem reasonable and more workable. With the stadium project, for instance, and I don't remember all the details, but they had significant challenges trying to meet the percentage participation goals that were established. Actually, they were mandates, I think, by the legislature. And these percentages seem attainable and reasonable. And so I good job, Shandell, good job.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Larry Brown. This is RTC, but when you start interacting with our member agencies, are they going to have to do anything differently from their purchasing areas?
Chairman Brown, Shondell Newsom for the record. No, they are not. We actually vetted this with them, and they have, this is not different than what they normally do on original FRI projects. The reporting is just going to be monitored better.
Great, thank you. Shondell, thank you for the presentation and your continued work in the community. You've certainly had an impact in a very, very positive way. So appreciate all you're doing. Any other questions from the board?
If there is nothing more, Mr. Chair, I move approval. Assuming that's probably the way to make the motion, so I move approval.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 49 was pulled from the agenda. The next item is item 50, that is to discuss legal items, and there are not any at this time, so we can skip this item as well. And we'll move on to the last item on the agenda, which is your final citizens participation.
The second time set aside for public comment. Just a reminder, comments will be limited to the first 500 words, with the remaining words to be included in the written record. Do we have any comments, and/or do we have anybody on the phone?
Thank you, Chair Brown. Again, this is Eileen Pastor for the record. We have 5 total public comments. Your first public comment is from Raymond Fletcher. Good morning, Chairman Brown and members of the RTC Board of Commissioners. For the record, my name is Raymond Fletcher. The words enclosed herein are those of my own as a private citizen. Public transportation is the cornerstone of fostering inclusiveness in the disability community. For without this, individuals would have no way whatsoever to access life. Public transportation, especially this one after experiencing several different systems throughout the United States, is perhaps one of the best I've ever experienced. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But what public transportation system is? It is the ability of members of this organization and of this board to listen to the community and adapt as needed that makes it one of the greater ones. Last month, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the landmark civil rights legislation known as the Americans with Disabilities Act. I must express my appreciation for the lengths that this organization went through to acknowledge such an occasion. I can't think of any other organization throughout all of Nevada that recognized or even acknowledged this event. Moreover, I need to express my heartfelt, sincere gratitude to Mayor Goodman for acknowledging it as well. Ma'am, you are perhaps the only elected official in all of Nevada that took a moment of your time to acknowledge and honor this event. While others were too busy tweeting about their appearances on Anderson Cooper, you acknowledged this, and I sincerely appreciate that. Several months ago, I challenged this body and this board to honor that legislation and advance opportunities for people with disabilities. 30 years after legislation was passed to foster total inclusion in our community, I want to reiterate this challenge on every single level. As I have previously stated, a disability is one thing that unites every single human being, as anyone can become disabled at any time, rather be in the womb or in the deathbed. A disability does not care about your age, race, or gender. The challenge I issued was to bring a person with a disability into a leadership or management position. I don't want to see a person in a position that just because they have a disability or for the sake that they are disabled. Remember that we judge a person on the content of the character and not based on the color of their skin. Hopefully we can apply the same in that we provide opportunities for individuals based on their skills and abilities, not because they have a disability. If we provided opportunities just because someone had a disability, well, we might as well just be picking a vice presidential candidate, not based on their skills. Were they chosen? They were chosen just because they were disabled. We don't need that kind of tokenism in 2020. Just because someone is one thing or another thing does not necessarily mean that they are the most qualified or best suited for the position. There are some with disabilities that are on the front lines during this pandemic, so I hope in the future that they will be rewarded with their same opportunities as their non-disabled peers. Thank you. Your second public comment is from Stephanie Versnick. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Versnick, and I am testifying before you for the 30th time. I have been testifying every month, asking this commission to expand the service area in this community for 2 years and 6 months, 2.5 years. This pandemic has changed the lives of so many families in our community. So many families are unemployed and dealing with that difficult situation. Many families have food insecurities, financial hardships. Schools are starting the new school year online in less than 2 weeks, and families are trying to figure out that challenge. Families are facing new and different crises daily. The pandemic has impacted everyone's lives. Our numbers are still on the rise. Everyone is stressed financially, spiritually, and emotionally. I believe that eliminating multiple routes and not expanding the service area is just adding another stress to already overwhelmed and strained families. Why, during the worst time for families, would the RTC do this? It would make sense to me that during this difficult time that we would want to be helping families as much as possible, not adding to the problem. Be the solution, not the problem. As I stated last month, a pandemic does not stop people from going to the grocery stores or to essential appointments. Transportation is essential and an important part of people's lives, especially when public transportation is their only option. My son Christian continues to work at the commissary. He has adapted wearing a mask and understands that social distancing is important. I continue to pick him up at the Centennial Library and drive the 7 minutes it takes to bring him home. This is the 6th month I have asked this commission to develop an affordable premium service plan option for people who live outside of the service area. Imagine my frustration and disappointment when looking at the agenda and notice that my request has been ignored again. I think it is rude and disrespectful to not even have the common courtesy to acknowledge my request. I have testified for the last 6 months that having an affordable premium service plan would at least give people who live outside of the service area an option for transportation. This would take place until RTC expands the service area, which in my opinion should have happened a long time ago. In these difficult times, offering an affordable premium service plan would be such welcoming and positive news for families. As a concerned member of this community, I am requesting to have a proposed affordable premium service plan as an agenda item put on the September's agenda for this commission to vote on as an action item. This request is not unreasonable and deserves the respect to be granted. Remember, we are all in this together. Sometimes I wonder. Your third public comment is from Robin Kincaid. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Robin Kincaid, and I have come before the Commission over 23 times regarding the need to change paratransit service area back to the 2011 configuration. My daughter, Kayla, lives in the service area, but still cannot access essential services that have either relocated outside of the service area, or in some instances, the business could not find a building that was in the service area. There have been many RTC advertising campaigns that tell people with disabilities where to live and work. If a person with a disability is offered a job outside the service area, they have to refuse that employment because of the lack of access to that company. What is just as concerning are the RTC campaigns that tell people where they can shop, see their doctor, attend their place of worship, or attempt to visit a new friend. If any of these businesses do not move out of the service area, persons with disabilities are forced to start over to replace these services or simply eliminate these contacts out of their lives. So it is not enough to live in the service area. People with disabilities need options as well as a choice to be able to go to places that are not in the service area. I need the Commissioners to understand that by supporting restrictive service area practices, the results create a form of oppression against persons with disabilities. The oppression contributes to unemployment and poverty for a population that struggles to receive opportunities in education, employment, and housing. I have attempted in previous public comments with the Commission to explore solutions to resolve the service area restrictions. This 2020 year desperately needs some positive action by this Commission to determine the cost of expanding the service area and reconfiguring the shape of the service area that eliminate the inlets that contain essential services. Another solution would be to have the Commission consider a reasonable premium rate to cover additional costs of expanding the service area. Once again, I'm requesting that these concerns be addressed in the September agenda. Disability-related oppression, whether associated with intentional discrimination or not, requires a social response and a remedy. Join with me to consider ways to include persons with disabilities so they have the access to essential services in areas they establish and develop a life full of meaningful experiences. Thank you. Your fourth public comment is from Barry Artemisia. Because you have isolated routes not on the main corridor where regularly traveling buses run, we that have been excluded are suffering even much deeper with this pandemic. Why don't you? And your last public comment is from Karen Worthington. The RTC website says that part of the RTC safety plan for COVID is to use ion air filters. Is this wise considering the ozone pollution that the system generates? Ion air filters have been banned in the state of California over health concerns and are a known lung irritant. The pollution could potentially cause more severe reactions for regular riders should they contract COVID and having been exposed to a known lung irritant. And Chair Brown, that concludes your public comments.
Thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks to all the board members. Be safe.
Thank you.